Today I'll be tying a green drake CDC loop wing emerger. This has been a very effective fly for me. You can tie this in different colors and sizes to imitate any mayfly, and I'll put up a couple of other images at the end that you can see. I've got one for a March brown and a blue wing olive as well. But let's tie the green drake. I'll put a hook in the vise. My hook today is a Daiichi 1280, size 10. The thread I'm using is a Danville 70 denier or 6/0 and an olive. Like all my flies, I start behind the eye and we'll take touching turns to just above the barb. Trim the thread and keep going. I'll have the fly pattern sheet linked below on my website. So for the tail, we'll be using some fibers from a wood duck. And let's just pull some of these fibers out. So as we pull them out directly 90 degrees from the stem or the rachis, and then just pull the feather away, your tips will be fairly aligned. We wanted about a body length or a shank length, perhaps a little bit less. And we use a pinch wrap. And I'm going to trim this about where the thorax will start. Over the top of that, we'll have a little tuft of Zelon. This is Mayfly Brown Zelon. And we want that about half of the length of the wing of the tail. And like the last material, we'll cut that about where the thorax is. And the reason I'm cutting it that long is to create a little bit of bulk for the body. And you can see I'm using my thread to help manage those materials. And now let's go back to the tie-in point of the tails. And this is, I'll flatten my thread. This is where we'll take a biot now. And we'll take it from the leading edge here. This is just a turkey biot, a wing. Happens to be blue wing olive. As I pull this out from the leading edge, I'll just rip it off. And people talk about how to put these on. There's a smooth edge, so if I were to tie it on like this, it would be smooth all the way up. If I put it on the other direction, you'll notice as I tie this, I'll have a little bit of a furled edge. And I like that for my emergers and nymphs because it would simulate the gills of the mayfly nymph. I'm going to use my thread to create a little bit of a taper. Doesn't have to be much, but just a tiny bit. And leave my thread where I think the thorax is going to be. And I'll use some Zap-A-Gap brushable. This will add a little bit of durability to your fly. And that's way too much. Let's take some of that off. I usually just touch the shank of the hook, and that's about as much as I need. And I'll always put the cap back on. Use my hackle pliers now, and as I move this, start to wind this forward, you'll see I'll overlap these, and you can see the natural gill or the furling from this biot feather. In addition, you can see the Zappa-Gap move forward as I continue to wind the biot. Take a couple of thread wraps over, hold on to it tightly, make another wrap, and then we'll trim the butt ends. For the wing, I'll be using some Trout Hunter CDC. These happen to be dark dun. You can use a medium dun or dark dun. And here's an image of several different types of CDC feathers. And I'm going to use the long brush type feathers. I've got some over here on my fly tying bench. I'll select a couple of them. These are longer feathers, and I'll put the tips together. And both of these feathers with the curve is going up. And you can see if I move the feathers between my thumb and forefinger, the tips will align. And I want to try to get as many of these CDC fibers as I can. And I'll trim off a little bit over my garbage can right there. And move my thread forward. I'll just make a soft wrap or two to capture them and then pull them back and continue wrapping back. And I go almost to the halfway point because when you pull it forward, it's going to be a lot less length than what you think it is. So let's make sure we've got enough room. This will be some superfine gray olive dubbing that I have in my dubbing dispenser. And I'll apply it. And this will take quite a bit of dubbing. Green drakes are pretty thick. Thick bodies, thick thorax. And I'll continue to apply a little bit of dubbing. Make sure you go back to where that's attached. And we'll end about a little over an eye length behind the eye of the hook. This is going to become my wing. And for the throat, I'll take a feather from my partridge. I'll pull off the fluff. Much like I did with the wood duck, I pull those fibers directly out, grab them, and pull the feather away from my hand. And I'm going to make a soft wrap. And we'll see if that's in the right location. I want it just about covering the point of the hook. And we'll use your thumb to separate those fibers a tiny bit and make a few more wraps to secure. And now we can trim these butt ends. As we fold this forward, that's tight, but we want it to be somewhat loose. And make sure you pull these fibers back so you can get as many CDC feathers as you can. And I'll just be careful and trim those one at a time so I don't cut my thread. I've got a few extra fibers there, so I'll just take my fingers and pull those back, and we'll just make a nice, neat head. And whip finish. And there is the CDC loop wing emerger. As promised, here are a couple of images of the other types of CDC loop wing emergers that you can use for smaller flies, smaller mayflies. This has been very effective for a green drake hatch. This lays right in the film, and fish seem to prefer it at times. So if you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to my RiverKeeper Fly YouTube channel. The fly pattern sheet is linked below to my website, and I'll see you next time.